Ladies and gentlemen, degenerate gamblers, happy Friday, fight fans. Welcome back. This is the undefeated post-weigh-in show, UFC 293. We're going back to back on the shows as quick as we can. Your boy's a little busy today. We just knocked out the Sharp Action Report. That is right here on Pub Sports Radio. Make sure you go to that live tab. My guy Andrew from Superbook Sports, let us know where the sharp and public action was. I might spoil one of those here on this particular show, but I'm going to make you go back and watch the other one if you want the other good stuff. Come on, you got to give us the content. What's up, everybody? We already got 18 people here. I'm sure that number is going to skyrocket in a second. You guys can help that by hitting the like button. Let's get after it. All right, first fight of the night. We've got Kiefer Crosby taking on Kevin Doucette. And if this is your first time watching the Undefeated post-weigh-in show, we take everything that we've put together, the Sharp Action Report, our breakdowns from the fights throughout the week, a couple friends who are guests on the show and their reads. We put that all in a giant cauldron, and then we watch these fighters weigh in, and we see the actual size differences because the UFC stat page is always wrong, and somebody is always 4 inches taller than they say that they are. So we make sure we've got that information correct, and then we come on back and we put our betting card together. Kiefer Crosby came in at 170.85 today. They're using an electric scale down there, so we're going to get a lot of weird numbers. Usually it's a half or a full pound. It's never these weird in-betweens, but we got them today. Kevin Doucette, 170.5. Kiefer Crosby looking good. Big flex, big smile. Dude's really feeling himself up there. Seems very confident. Kevin Doucette, very well muscled, more on the stoic side, kind of keeping to himself, keeping calm. When they face off, Kevin actually has a decent size advantage in this spot. Now, Kiefer was amped up when they got to the face-offs. This guy was like screaming his head off, got into the face of his opponent. This was a good, solid, intense face-off. You like to see it. I think we're going to see violence on this first fight of the night. I feel a little bad. I should have bet it sooner. The under 2.5 is like minus 150 out there right now. I think that's the way. Kevin Doucette, he's the favorite. He probably wins here in this spot. He is the much bigger man. I think he's the right side. However, I don't feel super comfortable laying minus 160, minus 170 on a guy like that. I do think he can be hurt, and because of that, I think the under is probably the play. And usually the UFC likes to start the night off with a banger. So I think they put this one together with the under in mind, right? So not only are we playing into the narrative, I think numbers-wise, it's the right side and it makes sense. Haven't done it yet, but I probably will be adding the under 2.5 here on this first fight of the evening to my betting card. Daniel saying to go ahead and fade this fight. I mean, honestly, I don't mind that whatsoever. Definitely fade it if you want to keep that money in your pockets. That's probably the way to go. But I think violence is the way. If you're going to bet it, violence is probably the way. My guy, Ben, with the shout out here. You're the man, Ben. Thank you all very much for tuning in here and turning on the show. And Daniel, I'm not touching that shit with a 10-foot pole, man. I'm not going anywhere near the dog situation. The only dogs I'm interested in are dogs that I can bet my money on. That's what we're doing here. Speaking of dogs, he's having a little too much fun out there. All right, Gabriel Miranda up next, taking on Shane Jung. This is the big spot on the card from the weigh-in standpoint. Gabriel Miranda comes in 144.95, so cutting down to 145. I was a little concerned about the guy. He's a big dude. He was in there physically matching wits with Benoit Saint Denis up a weight class. I wasn't sure he was going to be able to get down and do it healthy, but not only did he do it, he came in just a little bit under. Shane Jung, opposite problem. He came in at 149.75. We're talking 4 pounds overweight for Shane Jung. Not a good look. Gabriel Miranda rocking the most excellent mustache on the entire card today. Look good. shredded up physically, no issues from him whatsoever. Shane Jung, on the other hand, needed the box of shame. Not sure why you're even bothering when you're already 4 pounds over. But face is way sucked out, eyes sunken in, blinking rapidly, all the signs that we look for a bad weight cut, and then he still missed weight. Bad look. Not only does Miranda have a massive size advantage here in this spot, but Shane Jung looks to potentially already be compromised. The one thing that I do want to say is we need to just a little grain of salt on this one. They did the ceremonial weigh-ins super early today. The fight is not until normal time tomorrow. These fighters have a lot of extra time to rehydrate. So anybody who we look at on this particular card and we go, ooh, that's a bad weight cut, that looked bad, it might not matter that much because they actually have longer than normal to make sure their bodies are rehydrated and back where they need to be. So even though Shane Jung looked bad on the scales today, even though he looks like he had a rough weight cut, I'm not reading too much into that because of the extra amount of time he's going to have to actually recover and be correct on fight night. So I like Gabriel Miranda. I've been kind of leaning to his side all week. The line is moving that direction. He was plus 145 earlier. He's down to like plus 130, plus 125 at this point. So I'm a little bit sad. I screwed up. I didn't jump in fast enough. And now we're taking a worse number if we're going to look that way. And on top of that, this is the spoiler for the week, folks. The big guy, the #1 MMA bettor over at Superbook Sports, the guy whose action they build their cards around and make sure they try to welcome action on the other side of his action. He came in and he did bet Gabriel Miranda just this morning. So that's a late ad for their #1 bettor over at Superbook Sports. And if that tells you anything, that's probably the side that you want to be on. Nobody's perfect. He had a couple of missteps 2 months ago or something like that at this point, but he has more than gotten right since then. The guy is a very, very solid gambler. So the big guy is on Gabriel Miranda. I leaned that way myself early on. That's kind of the last piece of the puzzle. I probably will add Miranda to my betting card at this point. I also just think that Shane Jung, I think it's step on the throat time, folks. I've talked about a couple fights like this in the past. When you get somebody who's just kind of treading water, they can't really make their way. They're on a tough run. And then he's 0-3 against UFC level competition. His only UFC caliber wins aren't guys that are with the organization anymore. He hasn't beaten anybody in the UFC since 2019, and Austen Arnett is no longer with the organization. So I think it's time we let go of Shane Jung. I don't think he's going to have a roster spot after Saturday, and because of that, we should take this opportunity to fade him at plus odds while we can against a guy who might actually still have a little bit of upside down the line. So I like Gabriel Miranda. Next up, Blood Diamond takes on Charlie Radke, Chuck Buffalo himself, 170.25 for Blood Diamond, 170.3 for Radke. No problems for Blood Diamond. He was looking a little cocky, a little confident. You would think maybe a little too much for a guy who's 0-2 under the UFC organization. I'm not sure why he's feeling himself as much as he is, but fighter's gonna fighter. Charlie Radke, big old strong flex. This guy is very well muscled. He is thick. He's a big dude. When they face off, Blood Diamond does have a slight height advantage. It's that classic thin kickboxer thing going on. He's a little taller. He's a little lankier. Chad, obviously, much, much thicker. I think I like the favorite here in this spot. I'm picking him to win, but this is a dog or pass betting situation, in my opinion. Charlie Radke has been hurt in a lot of his fights, especially early. He does get a little over aggressive coming in, and he has been knocked out before. I think this is a spot where the UFC doesn't care. I think if Mike Mathetha gets his first UFC win via spectacular head kick on home soil, they're going to love that. Now Mike Mathetha, Blood Diamond, is back. We got a guy. He's going to look awesome, and he can knock this guy out. However, he's getting his walking papers if Radke gets him to the ground. We know that's the problem for Blood Diamond. He can't defend takedowns. He doesn't have great submission defense. I think if he gets to the floor, Radke's going to tap him out. It's pretty binary in my opinion. It's either Blood Diamond by KO or Radke by sub. I've been saying that all week. No bet for me. The under doesn't sound half bad. If you want to take that stab, 10-1 Blood Diamond by round 1 KO, I don't hate that. That's a fun little sprinkle, but I wouldn't be overly invested here in this fight personally. Sean D coming in with the dono, saying Clintus, Decimus, Maximus, let's roll, baby. What's up, Sean? Thank you so much for joining the show, and thank you for the donation here on Pub Sports Radio. Everybody hit that like button for me, and let's keep on moving here. Nasrat Haqparast takes on Landon Quinones. Haqparast, 155.85 Quinones 155.75. So a couple little decimal spots there. Haqparast did need the box of shame. However, afterwards, he looked like Ricky Bobby didn't really know what to do with his hands. No big deal. Nasrat Haqparast is good to go. Landon Quinones, very delicate step on the scale this morning. Usually that's a sign of like sensitivity or lack of balance, which again can come from a poor weight cut, but I think he's okay. As soon as they called his name, he gave a big old flex and got all pumped up, stepped off the scale aggressively. He's fine. And again, extra time to rehydrate. These two are going to be perfectly fine in the cage tomorrow. They actually size up really well. You know, you get to the face-offs, the only thing is Landon was he was talking his face off. This guy is pumped up. He's got a chip on his shoulder. And Nasrat just smiled at him. Like, this is absolutely one of those big brother spots, in my opinion, where the young kid is barking at the older brother. And Nasrat just wasn't having it. Like, he's laughing off everything this kid says. He is the far better mixed martial artist. And I think the price tag is justified. Nasrat is a minus 400 favorite. And I think he just kind of boxes Quinones up for 15 minutes. I don't know that it's going to be overly competitive. Maybe I'm wrong. But I do think Nasrat probably rolls here in this spot, and the short notice fill in Landon Quinones probably doesn't grab the glory that he's looking for here on Saturday. Lenny with the 499 dono shout out, just showing some love. Big fan of the channel. Thank you so much, Lenny. We appreciate you very much here at Pub Sports Radio. You are awesome, my friend. All right. John McDessie takes on Jamie Mullarkey up next. You have got the bull, John McDessie, 155.1. Jamie Mullarkey, 155.35. No problem for either guy. John McDessie looks very comfortable. This is just business as normal here for this guy. He trained at Fight Ready for this camp. You know they're going to have him on point. I was really hoping he had some like extra veins and some extra bulgy muscles like Fight Ready kind of gets some guys. Maybe McDessie's a little old for that. That was a little wishful thinking, I guess. Jamie Mullarkey, big flex. Looks good. I mean, he's always first generation upright. He looks like a caveman with that forehead. But, you know, he looks like he always does. He looks like he's ready to go here in this spot. The big thing for me, the size difference. I kind of thought these guys would size up okay based on the numbers that I saw, but dang, Jamie Mullarkey is way more physical than John McDessie. Much larger. It was a good face-off. It was respectful. The problem for me is like, I'm picking Mullarkey. Everybody's picking Mullarkey, but we saw what happened last time. You can't lay big chalk on Jamie Mullarkey. Never. You can't do it because he just gets binked. Like every once in a while, out of nowhere, he just gets tagged right on the button and that's it. Show is over. And I don't want to be in that position again on Saturday. Thankfully, I avoided it last time out. But I do think that this is another spot with a little bit of danger. John McDessie has a good karate style where they have that explosive, quick in, quick out type of movement. And he's been working at Fight Ready where they specialize in that kind of striking. That's exactly how Henry Cejudo moves. So if he comes in and hits one of those hooks, maybe timing a level change with a knee, something like that, he's not a KO guy. But we've seen Jamie Mullarkey get caught exactly by that and get KO'd before. I'm not putting my hard-earned money on Jamie Mullarkey again. He probably wins on Saturday, but no bet for me. Jack Jenkins takes on Chepe Mariscal up next. You've got Jenkins 145.85. Chepe comes in at a 145.85 as well. And they should call this guy Jacked Jack Jenkins. He's looking good up there on the scales today. Well-muscled, looking strong, big flex, another mustache. We talked briefly on Twitter about doing a mustache parlay. There's some excellent mustaches here at UFC 293. Chepe needed the box of shame. No real problem. He was fine. Gave a very defiant flex when he got up on the scale afterward. He's fine. He's good. Chepe does have a size advantage in this spot, and that is where I have a big question mark here. I kind of thought they'd size up a little better. I thought Jack Jenkins was just a little bit bigger. I have Jack Jenkins in a parlay. I tied him up with Manel Kape much earlier in the week. I'm already in. I'm already invested. I think he's the right side. I think he can take advantage of some of the things that Chepe does wrong. But you know what? I've been wrong betting against Chepe before. So if Chepe makes me pay again on Saturday, I'm not going to be happy about it. Totally possible. Could happen. But I do think this fight sets up well for Jack Jenkins to kind of keep steaming his hype, and especially doing it here at home. I don't think Chepe is going to be able to recreate the success he had against his last opponent because he had such a big grappling advantage in that spot where he was just kind of fighting off those giant hammer fists, and it was a brawl from end to end. I think Jack Jenkins is going to be a little bit more technical, especially with the leg kicks, the way he works those and then goes high after a bit. We've seen Chepe drop his hands, especially when he kind of flurries in on his opponents and he gets frustrated closing that distance. I think the head kick will be there. So we'll see what happens. I'm parlayed up on Jack Jenkins, feeling a little bit less confident about it. The physicality of Chepe does worry me just a little bit, but once again, I'm already in. Nothing I can do now. We'll see what happens. Jung takes on Carlos Ulberg. Jung 205.3. Ulberg 204.7. And Jung honestly looked great up there. He looked strong, maybe a little bit tighter physically speaking. His abs were showing off. He looked okay. He looked good. Carlos Ulberg, confident, looked great. All the ladies are waiting to watch this fight. Ulberg is the man they are tuning in for this week, but did he look a little bit less shredded to anybody else? I don't know. He looked a little softer body-wise to me. I'm not sure if he was as chiseled as we've seen him before in the past. Maybe I'm reading a little too much into that, but Ulberg seemed just not a lot, just a little, barely a little bit. But they size up really well, and that's one of the things I talk to people about this week is that Jung is a big, big guy. One of the big things with Carlos Ulberg is he's always got the size advantage. He's always got the reach advantage. He struggles when he's not the bigger guy. And Jung is a man who will match him physically. It's going to be interesting to see how this fight goes. I'm very tempted on the dog, Jung, in this spot. I do think the round 1 KO for Ulberg is there. It's always there. That's kind of what the guy does. It's what he's built for. It's how they market him. And they're giving him a guy that he can knock out. I think it's another spot where the UFC honestly doesn't really care. They're giving him a guy who he can knock out. However, he's also a guy who's important to them in a different market and has an advantage on this guy in the grappling. If Jung is able to get the wrestling going and take Carlos Ulberg down, Ulberg's gas tank is terrible. He doesn't have more than 4 minutes of a solid gas tank, and that's why he knocks everybody out early. If Jung is able to drag him into the second round, or shit, if he even just hits a couple takedowns on him in the first, Jung is going to be the fresher guy, and Jung will end up getting him out of there in the second or the third round, in my opinion, via submission. 16-1 on that sub prop. I'm probably going to sprinkle that. It's just a matter of, do I wait to bet Jung live if I like what I'm seeing, or do I hold my nose and take the plunge pre-flop? I'm not sure which one I want to do. I'm still very much debating it, but Ulberg is a guy that I frankly have just never been sold on. I've never been sold on him, and he's fought a very weak level of competition in the UFC. He's obviously the hometown guy. He's been propped up to being the hometown guy as such. The closest thing to a decent fighter he's fought has been Kennedy Nzechukwu, and that's the fight that he lost. So I think this is another spot very similar to Kennedy. It's sketchy. He's got avenues to win, but he might not. We'll see what happens. All right, everybody. Next up, you've got Tyson Pedro taking on the pleasure man, Anton Turkalj. 205.45, 205.35. No issues for either man. Tyson Pedro, big smile, big flex. He's enjoying the moment while he was up there. And Anton Turkalj, very blank today. Seems pretty well dialed in, if I do say so myself. Anton's big. Really big. They get to the ceremonial face-offs, and he has a decent size advantage, but there was a huge pop from the crowd on Tyson Pedro. He's absolutely going to get the hometown benefit here. Hopefully this fight not going the distance, obviously, but Pedro is going to have that place rocking every single time he lands anything. I am banking on the durability of Anton Turkalj. I did already bet him. I got plus 125 for 2 units. He is now the minus 115, minus 120 favorite. Interestingly, that line has flipped from dog to favorite. That's a hard thing to do. He's got a lot of support. I hope we're not mushing it on Twitter this week. Tyson Pedro, another one of these guys, very similar actually to Carlos Ulberg. He is round one or bust. If he doesn't get you out of there in that first round, he doesn't have the gas to go any deeper than that. And honestly, he's had a lot of injury issues. He's had a lot of concerns physically, a long layoff. And because of that, I think he may not be the man that he was when he was a hot prospect starting off in the UFC, and losing to guys like Modestas Pikalkis just screams volumes to me about how shot he is at this stage of his career. And Modestas isn't even a guy who pushes the pace. Like, all they were doing was skipping around the octagon for 15 minutes, and he was exhausted. He had nothing to offer in that fight after the first round. So if that's the case here with Anton, a guy who I know can tank absolute nukes from fighters like he did in his last fight, and then get the grappling going. Now, Pedro might be a better technical grappler than Turkalj, but Turkalj's going to have the gas tank. Turkalji's going to have the aggression. Turkalji's not going to go anywhere. If he packed his lunch, Turkalji's winning this thing. I'm thinking round 2, round 3 sub. Hopefully, you don't want to go to the judges' scorecards with a guy like Pedro. And frankly, I don't think Pedro's got the gas to get to the scorecards if it's a Turkalj fight anyway. Next up, Austen Lane takes on Justin Tafa. 242.3 for Austen Lane, 265.2 for Tafa, tipping the scales over there, the big man. No issues for either of these guys. Both of them kind of coming in the same way they did last time. Very respectful face-off. I mean, obviously, Lane's the taller guy. We have seen them face off before. We have seen them in the cage together before. We know Austen Lane is the bigger, taller, athletic, more long man, but Tafa's got nukes. If you get into range on Tafa, he will kill you dead right where you stand. And the interesting thing to me, and I talked to Andrew about this, is it's weird that these guys had a fight where it ended in eye poke after about 20 seconds, and then the bookies made Tafa a bigger favorite when they reset it. I'm not sure why you would do that based on what we saw, because Lane was doing everything right. Lane was doing exactly what you need to do to beat Tafa, and that's stay out of boxing range. If you can pick and poke at this guy and kick him in the gut and run so he can never get you with those clubbing meat hooks of his, that's how you beat Justin Tafa. Like, Jared Vanderaa was able to do that. Like, so I kind of think Tafa is maybe, hey, I got half a mind to boot you out of my chat, baby. No Viking slander around here. Get the fuck out of here. So I actually think that Austen Lane kind of showed us exactly what he needed to do to win this fight if he can keep it up for 15 minutes. Now, obviously, I don't know that we can trust him to do it for 15 minutes. He could slip up. He could make a mistake. He could get caught by a guy like Justin Tafa. But if he keeps doing what he did for those first 20 seconds, I think he could win the fight. The thing I think we pinpointed on the other show that I like is that we kind of like the over 1.5. They're giving you stupid, juicy plus odds on this fight to get up and over 1.5. And again, I know that's terrifying because you've got heavyweights who like to end their fights early, but we've seen Justin Tafa go over before. And we know that's really the only way that you can beat this guy. Because if you're brawling, you're not winning against Justin Tafa. His losses are by decision against Carlos Felipe and Jared Vanderaa. So like the over 1.5 being plus 175, plus 180, I kind of think that's the same thing as the money line for Austen Lane, except if he screws up at the end of the second or the third round and gets KO'd, you still won your bet. So I actually might be adding the over 1.5 on this fight. It is the butthole pucker spot of the night to take this heavyweight over 1.5, but I kind of like it. You know, big risk, big reward. Let's maybe swing for the fences there on that one. Next up, Felipe Dos Santos takes on Manel Kape. Felipe came in at 125.4, Kape 126 on the dot, and Dos Santos, no problem. Kid looks good. Kid looks really good. Manel Kape did need the box of shame. They had to tell him to get his hands out of there. I got a feeling he was pulling a DC in there, grabbing hold of some of the fabric or something, trying to make the weight cut just a little bit easier, but he made it. He's all right. Honestly, Kape looks like he's in phenomenal shape. Like, he's always in good shape, but he's in like damn good shape. You can see his abs jacked here on this one. Gave a big old flex up there. And this was an intense face-off. Now, Kape is not a guy you want to mess with. He's always intense, but he came in low, almost like he was going to shoot a takedown, and then popped up right in the face of Felipe Dos Santos. And Felipe didn't respond well to that. Like, he was immediately jawing. Kape didn't say a word, though. This was another one of those silent treatment type of spots where I'm like, man, like everything from Kape is just oozing the kind of confidence that I want when I back a fighter. Not only that, but I don't understand how this fight got sanctioned. I said that on the Monday podcast. I'm not sure how you take this kid from being on Contender Series to fighting in a number 1 contenders fight. It's insane that this 22-year-old kid is being given an opportunity against Manel Kape, of all people, a guy who the UFC has been trying to position as a top 3 fighter and title challenger since he got to the organization. Like, this is absolutely going to be a barn burner of a fight. If you want to bet the under or parlay violence in this spot, I think you can. Now, every once in a while, Manel Kape will play around with his food too much, and you won't get that under because he just wants to beat somebody senseless. But the way this kid fights, he's too dangerous. He's going to come forward with his foot on the gas, and he's going to try and kill Manel Kape. He's going to come in disrespectful, looking to take his slot with the UFC. So Kape's going to have to kill this kid. And I think that's what's going to happen. Because of the way this kid fights, and because of the disrespect Manel Kape is feeling, because of what happened with Kai France, he feels like he's being ducked by all these high-level fighters. He's never going to get to the title because no one will step in the cage with him. He's going to make a statement. And this poor kid is going to be the beneficiary of it. This poor kid is going to be the one who gets, when you look up slam dunk in the dictionary and somebody is getting dunked on in that picture, that's going to be this kid on Saturday. Manel Kape, I think, by absolute destruction in this fight. We've seen him hurt to the body. He does shoot sloppy takedowns when he gets a little tired, when he gets a little over aggressive. And because of that, I actually think Manel Kape is live to snatch a neck. That's something I say every single Manel Kape fight, is that the star boy has a very underrated submission game. He's got 5 wins by sub. I bet the sub prop against David Dvorak, and we were this close. He had him in it was like a top position arm lock of Kimura. Couldn't quite get it. Dvorak was able to scramble out of it. And that's the fight that always drives me nuts, because he had Dvorak dead to rights like 3 or 4 different times and somehow let him off the hook anyway. But he can absolutely sub this kid, especially if he comes in shooting one of those takedowns. If he's hurt, looking for desperation to get it to the ground, I think Manel Kape can finish him via submission. The problem is he's got those rib roasters. He's got that crazy power on the feet. He might just knock him out. Inside the distance, obviously, is the safe way to play Manel Kape, or parlay him up like I have. He is the second leg of my parlay with Jenkins, but I am very tempted to go ahead and take a little sprinkle on the sub prop from Manel Kape on Saturday. All right, everybody, here we go. We're getting down to the end of the line. Do me a favor and hit the like button if you haven't already. Tuivasa takes on Alexander Volkov, my big spot for the week, my 5-unit bomb of the event. I have made 3, folks. Count them. 1, 2, 3. 5-unit plays in all of 2023. I've been much sharper and much more careful with my bankroll management. I'm not taking as many crazy shots. I'm not laying as many big units. And I am 2-0 so far on those 5-unit bets. And they were both underdogs. We're doing it again on Saturday. Tuivasa, 5 units at plus 210. My guy came in at 265.6, tipping the absolute highest end of the scales you can get. Alexander Volkov, 262.95. These are some big boys. Obviously, Volkov is huge, tall, very well muscled, very lanky and long. Tuivasa, the exact opposite. He's short, he's stocky, he's flabby. He looks like a bag of milk. But it's okay. He hits like an absolute truck. The truck that delivers the milk to your mom's house. And that's why your dad... Oh, I'm just kidding. Okay, that was too much. All right, this was a good face-off. Real good face-off. Volkov gets in close. Very respectful afterwards, obviously. These are professionals. They're guys that know they're going to go in there and bang, have a good fight. They'll shake hands and get a beer afterward. I love that kind of sportsmanship in mixed martial arts. Tuivasa, though, folks, I put out a tweet a little earlier today. Someone was asking me for just like a real short breakdown on why Tuivasa, and I just included 3 clips. 3 clips. Look at the fight with the Black Beast, the finishing sequence. Look at the fight with Aspinall, and before he hits the takedown, right before he hits the takedown. And then also look at the fight against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. So now one of those ended in submission, one of those was a 3rd round KO, and one of those ended up being a Volkov 1st round KO. However, what you see in all 3 of those video clips is the exact same combination is used by those 3 fighters, and they connect with Volkov every single time. The man lets his right arm drop. He's so tall, he is so long that when you crash the pocket against him, he is just not athletic and fast enough to recover. These guys that are quick, when they've got a hand speed advantage on him, if they can just get inside on him, he has no response to that. The difference in this fight between maybe some of the others is that Aspinall had the grappling advantage and chose to take the path of least resistance. He didn't need to knock this guy out on the feet because he took him down and submitted him instead. Ciryl Gane, he is not a guy that's going to aggressively come out for the finish. He diced this man up for a full 25 minutes because he was comfortable there. He never felt fear. He was able to just outwork him and stay safe and never get touched by this guy for the entire fight. So he could have finished. He chose not to because that's how Ciryl Gane fights. The Black Beast, He got in, he used what he needed to, he got the combo, and he knocked this man unconscious. We've seen him take big shots like that and be bothered by them, notably the Aspinall spot and the Rosenstruik spot. He's been able to get out of it in those situations. Again, ended up getting finished in one of them. The Rosenstruik spot, Rosenstruik's just too small. Like he's not a big heavyweight. He's a tiny little guy. And even his UFC stats, they're all way exaggerating how big this man actually is. He's just not that big. So he was not able to tank the shots from Volkov, but you could also argue that was a little bit of an early stoppage. There were some people that night very up in arms because he took the shots. Yes, it looked bad. Yes, he was against the cage, but he wasn't out by any stretch of the imagination. You have to kill Tai Tuivasa to get him out of there. He's got an absolute brick for a head, and only guys like Pavlovich are actually able to knock him out. Cyril Gane was able to do it with body shots. I don't think Volkov's going to be able to replicate the Cyril Gane style of fighting. He's going to try his best to, but it's gotten him hurt before. And Tai Tuivasa has the leg kicks at a range game as well. So it's not like he's going to be safe at range from Tuivasa. It's not like a Derek Lewis situation where he has to close the range. He has to get inside to use any of his tools. He actually has some tools at distance, and I think that's going to give him an opportunity. If he chips away at those legs for the first round, he can slow down Volkov. He can force him into engagements because he feels like the leg is starting to get hurt. He can make him a bit more of a sitting target with those types of attacks and then set up his hands from there. So I do think Tai has got some real solid advantages, and because you've got Alexander Volkov, who is older. He's got so much experience, 46 professional fights. That wear and tear on your body, it takes a toll. And at 34 years old, he's not going to suddenly be more spry. He's not suddenly going to be quicker. He's not suddenly going to pick that right hand up where it needs to be. It's been a problem, a flaw in his game his entire career. Tuivasa is exactly the kind of guy who can take advantage of it. They call him Tai Tuivasa for a reason. Round 2 is his best round in every single fight. He dropped Cyril Gane in round 2 and was this close to upsetting the entire apple cart and finishing that man in the second round of the fight. It's going to take the first round for him to find out the timing, the speed, the distance. And once he gets that, he's going to piece Volkov apart. Round 2, Tai Tuivasa. And I think you can get a round 2 KO prop on Tai over on DraftKings at 10-1. I absolutely will be having a little flavor of that because I'm calling my shot and I'm betting it when I'm getting 10-1 odds. I think the Tai KO is fine, but I'm loading up on the money line. When you're risking that much money, no point in getting fancy on it. Money line plus 210 is good enough for me because the KO prop, now some places it's funny actually because like DraftKings, they'll actually give you like plus 300 on the KO prop, and people are saying, well, that's the same thing as his money line. Maybe, because what if he lands on Volkov but doesn't quite get him out of there? What if he's not the third person to ever knock out Volkov? He can steal the round based on big moments, based on big damage. So the decision is not entirely out of the question here in this spot. But you look at sharper books like Superbook Sports where they protect themselves, and the Tuivasa KO is plus 230, where the money line is plus 210. There's just no point. There's no juice. There's nothing extra. You're not getting any benefit. So for me, I'm going hard on the money line, and I'll be playing the round 2 at 10-1. That's the plan. Let's go 3 for 3, baby. I want another max bet to cash. I want another 5-unit underdog play to come through on Saturday. I'm looking for it. Let's go. All right. Main event time, everybody. Israel Adesanya taking on Sean Strickland. 184.8 for Israel Adesanya. 184.9 for Sean Strickland. And of course, Jared Cannonier weighed in as the backup. They're not going to need him. It's not looking like, unfortunately, for him. Well, I mean, I guess he gets a vacation and he gets paid to go do nothing here on the weekend, but he'd rather fight probably. Israel Adesanya, face a bit sucked in. No real issues for him. I got a real good laugh because he got up there and he went, "For China!" Because that's been, the talking point of Sean Strickland basically the entire week. I loved it. I thought that was hilarious. Sean Strickland, he's having a hard time. He needed the box of shame. They cut his interview short because he was really dragging, and he was like, man, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but that last pound, it's a bitch. Like, he straight up did not look good. He was exhausted. His mouth was dried out. He had a blank face. He wanted to get off the scale as quickly as humanly possible. Now, again, they have longer between weigh-ins to fight time on this particular fight card. I'm not worried about it. I would love to sit here and be like, oh, that's the nail in the coffin. He's struggling with the weight cut, but he's got longer to rehydrate this time than even normal. So while it might be something that compromised him a little bit under normal circumstances, I don't think it'll be an issue this time. You're going to get a full power Sean Strickland coming in on Saturday. Izzy obviously has a decent, solid height advantage here in this spot. Strickland doing his classic thing where he's just not really paying attention, kind of laughing it off, not taking it seriously. He's a wild man who literally just enjoys fighting. He's not about the face-offs or anything, but that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is the attitude of one Israel Adesanya. When this man calls his shots, when this man says he's going to do something, he usually follows through. And in this fight, all he's been is locked in and serious. He is not looking past Sean Strickland. He is not taking Sean Strickland lightly. And everything he has said has been very business oriented. Even at like the ceremonial pre-fight presser, he's like, let him say what he wants because I'm going to end it on Saturday. And anytime you get Israel Adesanya, who's locked in that hard, he has yet to miss. He has yet to miss when he says he's going to do something in the UFC. He always follows through. So I know it's hard to bet a minus 650, but if you want to anchor him in parlays and things like that, I don't think Israel Adesanya is losing this fight. I simply don't. Wouldn't be shocked at all if we see an under here in this spot just because of the way that Sean Strickland fights. This could look a lot like the Alex Pereira fight because he's going to be in Izzy's face 24/7. He'll be there to get hit with counters. And even if this fight does hit the ground, obviously then submission chances go through the roof and either guy could get finished at that point. So lots and lots of ways that this fight does not go the distance. I will lean to the under 4.5 in this spot. And I definitely think Izzy's going to be and still on Saturday. That's it, folks. That is the undefeated post weigh-in show for UFC 293. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me here today. Thank you all for being in the chat with me. Frosted Cupcake saying shoeys for everyone. You love to see it for the culture. I definitely hope he gets out there and earns me that paycheck. I was going to buy the shirt, but apparently it's a one of one. The awesome blue tie-dye Hawaii style shirt that Tuivasa was wearing for the presser. It's like a unique, they made it just for him type of t-shirt. So unfortunately, I will not be able to buy one of those because I absolutely would have rocked that on the Monday podcast if I could find it and get my hands on it. Love you all. Thank you so much for the support. Get out there, make some good bets, make some money on this card. Be careful. There's a couple landmine spots on this card, but I do think it's relatively chalk heavy. Most of the time, it is going to be tilted towards these hometown fighters having a good time. However, this week, a lot of these hometown favorites they got some questions around them this week. So just like I said, be careful. Let me go ahead and recap the action here for you guys. I do have a parlay, and that is going to be Jack Jenkins tied up with one Manel Kape, who I think is probably the most likely fighter to pay off his price tag here on Saturday. I like Manel Kape a lot. Now I've got Anton Turkalj, tweeted that bet way early on. Plus 125. That line is long gone for 2 units. Tuivasa plus 210 for 5 units. That's my big shot here on the card. Those are the only 3 plays I have so far. Like I mentioned, after talking with my guy Andrew, the big guy came in on Gabriel Miranda. I like everything I see from Gabriel Miranda at the weigh-ins, at the face-offs. I think he's the side. I will bet Gabriel Miranda probably at some point today. I like the under 2.5 for Doucette and Crosby. I may add that to my card. And believe it or not, I might actually add the over 1.5 for Tafa and Lane at stupid plus numbers. And then Jung has my attention. Whether I'm betting him pre-flop or whether I'm waiting to bet him live, I still am not certain yet. But that's the way I'm looking. My guy here, Jack, in the chat saying excited for your sub parlay, Clint. We'll definitely be looking for one this week. And hopefully we get over that 100 unit hump this week. It would be glorious if this was the week that we pulled that shit off. Let's go. I'm looking for a big weekend. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Go Vikings! Football's back, baby. I'm going to be degenning my face off on Sunday. And hopefully I've got some extra bullets in the chamber from UFC 293 to enjoy myself and probably pay the bookies back a little bit on Sunday. Have a great weekend. Let's roll.